Well, let's get straight to our guest, former Met Police detective, our favourite guest, long-suffering QPR fan, Peter Bleksley. Welcome, Peter.
Good evening. I was just wondering whether that was a Freudian slip or wishful thinking when you called Mark Rowley the former Met Police Commissioner.
Yes, it was wishful thinking because I'm going to join the crowd, and I think you might agree. I think he's got to go. My point here is what he does, Mark Rowley, in every situation, and I understand it. It's the police's job to keep the peace. But with him, he keeps the peace at all costs. It is not acceptable to me that the cops stand by and allow a very important memorial to the Holocaust victims, 6 million Jews killed by the Nazis in the Second World War. He allows it to be covered up so that it won't offend pro-Palestinian hate marchers as they snake past Hyde Park in London. Now, yes, the police must keep the peace, but they must also preserve inalienable rights. People in this country have an inalienable right to be Jewish, openly Jewish, and the police have to protect that. And they should protect Holocaust memorials above stopping fights. Stopping fights is important, but not as important as the right of a Jewish person to be Jewish in this country, or the right of people to see this very important memorial in Hyde Park. He's getting things wrong, isn't he, Rowley?
Well, his mouthpieces most certainly are. And if we look at Rowley's robots and what some of them have done in recent weeks and months since these pro-Palestinian marches have started, we've seen them pulling down posters that have just made a statement of fact. Hamas are terrorists. And we've seen the man with that poster being arrested. We saw the man appallingly described as being openly Jewish a couple of weeks ago and being prevented from trying to snake his way through the protest. And we've seen other examples of opposition to these pro-Palestinian marches being oppressed. Opposition is clearly not being allowed in any way, shape or form. And consequently, we can rightly derive from that Sir Mark Rowley has chosen a side. And the side is allowing these marches at almost any cost. Therefore, he has sacrificed the independence of policing. His troops are not policing without fear or favour. And consequently, there is a huge amount of disquiet beginning to bubble to the surface.
I totally agree, Peter. I mean, it looks as if the police are kind of sponsoring anti-Semitism and allowing these hate marches to proceed through the cities. And their whole... I mean, I've been to a few of them to observe, and the police just stand back and let people chant these, carry these jihad posters from the river to the sea. There's the Israel Star of David covered in Nazi insignia, etc., etc. And the police do nothing because they say they don't want to disturb the peace. Well, you know, as I say, there comes a point where the streets of Britain have to be rid of this kind of racism.
And last Saturday, there were only 2 arrests made during that march. And I've seen plenty of the footage. And like you on Saturdays, I've been in and around central London and watched some of the unpleasantness. And for there only to be 2 arrests on Saturday, it's frankly ridiculous because there's plenty of footage out there and people can see it on social media and elsewhere of chants. And no matter how anybody wants to perceive the chant, for me, from the river to the sea means the genocidal extermination of the sovereign state of Israel and every Jew alongside it. But of course the Met have employed their lawyers that say, oh no, a call to jihad, for example, is a moral striving against wrongdoings and the such like. An total and utter poppycock, which is all about appeasing these marchers and allowing them to spread their bile. Yes, of course, there are people there with a conscience who are worried about the loss of life. I do understand that. But within their midst, there is hatred, there is law breaking, and it's not being tackled like it should be.
I should stress, Peter, that Met Police have said this is about the memorial in Hyde Park. The decision to cover the memorial was taken by park authorities, not the police. And they're talking about, I think it's the Mail on Sunday. The Mail on Sunday's own article makes clear it is a precaution Royal Parks have taken for a number of different events. That's what the Met Police are saying. But it does fit into a pattern, doesn't it? As you say, these marches that snake through a number of cities every single weekend, they are hate marches. I mean, I have some sympathy for those who don't like the demonisation of hate as if it's some sort of crime in itself. But these marches are full of hatred for Israel. You know, that moment, was it 2 weeks, Saturdays ago, when that guy, the Jewish guy, was told you're openly Jewish. Now, I think that copper, to be fair, he was just inarticulate and, shall we say, not the world's greatest intellectually, used very bad language to tell that guy it would be dangerous for him to cross the road. But to say, the problem is you're openly Jewish is a window into the psyche of the police, that you let the pro-Palestinians march through the city and you try and get rid of the Jews because they're going to cause problems. No. The police must preserve the rights of the Jewish community as well as the rights of the pro-Palestinian marchers.
Indeed, they must. But remember, these officers are Sir Mark's mouthpieces. They are briefed before they go policing these protests and these marches, these demonstrations. They are briefed. They are told what the Metropolitan Police's standpoint is going to be. And I fully accept that officer, because I've seen the full interaction with Gideon Falter that officer had, I accept that he was trying to offer an alternative view, that he was offering to escort Mr. Falter through a different route, which meant he would not encounter the protesters. But once again, that is the window into the Metropolitan Police's soul, which is to oppress, prevent, do not allow opposition to these marches. And what you said right at the beginning of our conversation, which I very much pick up on, about keeping the peace at all costs. Yes, that is clearly their standpoint, but it is going to come at a cost. And that is the constant uprising, the anger, the opposition, which at some point is going to manifest itself in significant numbers of people on the streets opposing these pro-Palestinian marches. And then what's going to happen? Yeah. We will have to wait and see, because I can guarantee you that will happen.
My theory is this. Tell me what you think, Peter. I think that Rowley, and I've got some sympathy for him, is he's terrified of a kind of eruption of violence at one of these marches. And so he's doing everything to prevent even a spark that will trigger the trouble. And in that process, he's destroying fundamental, inalienable freedoms. It is a freedom to be openly Jewish, and it is the police's job primarily to protect that far more. That is far more important than stopping fights. Am I right?
You are absolutely correct. And there will be this growing opposition. It will manifest itself eventually out onto the streets. Last weekend, the Coalition Against Antisemitism cancelled what was going to be their counter-gathering to the protest, because they felt they couldn't keep people safe. They'd had meetings with the police, they didn't get the reassurances they want, and so they cancelled it. Eventually, these gatherings in opposition to these pro-Palestinian marches will occur. And what Rowley has attempted to try and prevent, I think at some point, might manifest itself in a pretty ugly set of circumstances.
I mean, I think that Rowley, inherited a disaster. But his performance as the Met Police Chief has not been very good. He's giving it his best shot. It's time to try someone else, isn't it?
Well, then the question I ask is, who are you going to replace him with? He's only been in position for 18 months. And when he applied for the job, there were only 2 candidates. Being Commissioner of the Metropolitan Police, whilst it comes with a salary and benefits package of £300,000 a year, nice work if you can get it, and an inevitable trip to a palace or a castle to have a gong pinned on you. But of course, Rowley was already a knight of the realm before he took up the job. It does come with a lot of responsibilities. And anybody who was to replace Rowley today or next year or the year after is simply going to be another one of these over-educated, intelligentsia-type senior police who are as woke as they come, fluffy, liberal, intelligentsia elite as they see themselves, with their heads so often full of pseudo-electoral claptrap that really has no place in policing.
Well, on those fine words, I'm going to say thank you very much, Peter. It is always a pleasure to talk to you. You know that. Peter Blexley, former Met Police detective there.